That button. Okay. Hi, everyone.
Don't press the don't button.
Correct.
Press the do
Correct.
button.
Yes.
So I've been playing around with ChatGPT with their API. So
And
well, it's a weird thing. They've always had an API with OpenAI, but
yeah,
it's been very expensive, and so it hasn't been a lot of that. But they knocked the price in half in December, and then they knocked the price by a factor of 10 about a week ago.
that's a
And so
lot.
now, yeah, so now you can just run tests all day. You can throw it just page after page after page, and you're like, oh, I've spent 7 cents today, right? Like it's not very much money. So there's a couple of things that I've been doing. One is um, trying to decode archive
Yeah,
journal
yeah, you mentioned that.
introductions.
That was cool.
Yeah. So we're pretty close on that. I mean, it's not that I would never make it available to anybody else because it requires human intervention, right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of neat that it turns a list of gobbledygook, astrophysics papers
Yeah.
into understandable synopses, and then give you clickbaity titles for them, right? So, and the clickbaity title allows me to look at it and go, okay, there might be some interesting news here, and then I can follow it back to the source and then feed it off to the writer. So that's interesting. The other one that I'm still a little trying to puzzle out
Mhm.
is that you can, like, I'm trying to see if I can create a fact checker that will catch mistakes that we make, because every day
Yeah.
or two I get an email from someone going,
Hey, you
can you
screwed this
please
up.
let the writer know that you said that the distance of the Milky Way is 1
Light year.
million kilometers, but it should be Andromeda should be 1 million kilometers, but it's actually 1 million light years or whatever, right? And it's just a bug, right? Somebody
Yeah.
just type out or whatever, and I'm trying to do this, and so I've so what I've found is that it's too agreeable. So I will give it a paragraph with a bunch of incorrect facts in it. We'll go, that is correct. This is correct. This is correct. You might want to add more information about this. Like, I told you that the Milky Way was 3 million kilometers across, and you told me that was correct. So, so then I figured out that we have to take it sentence by sentence.
Oh no.
So you feed it in, you parse out every individual sentence out of the article, and then you make it rewrite the sentence into a series of facts. So if it says, Nicholas Copernicus was the first person to discover hydrogen, which is not true, then it'll turn that into like three or four facts. And then you ask it to fact check each one of those facts that it provided to you. And then it's pretty good. Again, nothing that you could guarantee, but what it might do, what I'm hoping is that it will look through the article and it'll go, you said the orbital velocity of the Earth is 3 kilometers per second. It's actually 30 kilometers per second, right? That kind of stuff. So we're trying to see. And so the plan is, like, we've got this extension, a Chrome extension that the writers use that we've built.
Mhm.
And hopefully, when you're working on the article, this extension will pop up and show any mistakes in the article. That is the plan. And because the price is so low, I
Yeah.
can just, right. The other thing that's really interesting. So I'm getting super into the weeds here,
That's
but
okay. I'm enjoying it. I
when
am here for
okay,
this.
all right, okay. Yeah, well, I think there's use for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Content moderation for the forum, things like that.
Really? How
Sure,
does how
yeah.
does it do moderation?
Well, you would do things like, you would say, evaluate the following comment
Mhm.
for pseudoscience, spam,
Yeah.
for abusive language, whatever, and give me a judgment based on some kind of criteria, and give me your response in a numerical fashion, right? Evaluate the following comment from 1 to 10, with 10 being pseudoscience, or 1 being pseudoscience and 10 being well referenced
Yeah.
scientific fact, whatever, right? 1 being uh, not abusive in any way or whatever, right? Like whatever the criteria are. And then it'll come back and just give you numbers if you want in JSON, right? It'll parse them out into JSON if you want, right? So there's
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so the thing that's interesting about ChatGPT is that you can feed it the persona as part of is using the API. So normally when you use ChatGPT, it's forced into you are a helpful chat software developed by OpenAI, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But you can go, you are GLaDOS, a sarcastic robot who tests experiments on human beings, and then it will maintain that persona throughout the entire conversation. Or you can say, you are a postdoc astrophysicist who got a PhD at Harvard, and you are a science communicator. Please read the following paper and turn it into lay language. And so it removes one level of abstraction, like, because then you're not because then it's not trying to be a chat software that's role playing as an astrophysicist. It is just an astrophysicist that is attempting to do the work that you're giving it. So it's a weird thing. But it is well worth just
playing
with it. Set up an account on OpenAI, get access to the API, put in your credit card number, and then just start learning how to feed it queries. Because you're a programmer, right? You do what, Python, PHP, whatever you need. You can create your queries and all of this, and then you start to think about it like, you could use it for normalizing data. You can use it for extracting data out of a document. Like, there's just a ton of things, and it is not algorithmically perfect the way a computer, you want a computer to be. Like, if you write a regular expression, it's going to parse out the data algorithmically, exactly, right? And if it makes a mistake, then it's all wrong, and if you get it right, then it's all right. But it's complicated. With this, it's relatively simple to create the query, but it's kind of like a human being. You're saying, you're handing over a document to a human being, and you're saying, highlight all of the words that relate to creators on Mars, and it will try to highlight the words, and it'll miss a few. So this stuff is going fast. It's crazy how quickly. And did you see Facebook accidentally leaked or somebody leaked Facebook's model, which is the equivalent to ChatGPT. And now people are building these own versions that's on their own computers. And now you can run one command and download one of these models onto your computer and be having your own ChatGPT that you can then provide additional training to. You're not dependent on OpenAI's resources, less guardrails. So it's a crazy time. And it feels like it's now accelerating.
Yeah, I agree.
It's always been accelerating, but now it feels like it's kicking into high gear. I'm on the very cutting edge of this, watching every incremental improvement. And apparently ChatGPT 4 is coming out this week. And so while ChatGPT 3 could handle 3,000 tokens, 3,000-ish words.
Yeah.
Apparently it can handle 50,000 tokens.
Okay.
So you could feed it, say, 100 papers.
Yeah.
And then say, please summarize this. Right? You can feed it a book and say, summarize it. So anyway, weird time.
Yeah, seriously.
Apparently I'm too far to the right, or did you fix it?
Oh, I haven't fixed it. Let me fix that. You were wandering while you were talking, and I was just captivated by the words, and
okay, all right.
You are now moved.
Okay, good. All right.
And I'm just going to be pale today, is the moral.
It's fine. fine.
Emily just
Um,
got here. Can we wait to start until she's in the house so that the dog explosion doesn't
yeah. Okay,
affect
sure.
things? Okay.
Series Kaylee asks, does anyone have these new chatbots talking to chatbots? Of course,
Yeah.
someone has taken one chatbot and had it have conversations with another chatbot, and you can imagine how that goes. It either becomes incredibly repetitive, where the two chatbots are just saying the same things to each other uh, over and over and over again. They fall into this pattern, or it gets unhinged.
Yeah. The
The
unhinged is far more fun.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. The other thing I find really interesting is that there are words that you can use, like solid gold Magikarp. Have you heard about this?
No.
So there are words you can give the AI that cause it to glitch. And so if you say, "What is a solid gold Magikarp?" it will tell you that it is quantitative easing or something. And so it doesn't understand, like, somehow what people believe happened was that this data was in like Reddit comments, like someone's
Yeah, yeah.
Reddit title was in that, and then someone came along later and said, well, we should remove, like, this is low quality content, but it had this like instinctual memory of
Oh
this
man.
word in its sort of, somehow in its training, and yet it can't actively bring it up. So it's like it's been brainwashed. It's so weird.
Oh.
Again, so crazy.
All right.
And like all of this stuff is just coming so fast. The new version of Palm has a robot arm, and then they just give the robot arm commands like, open up the drawer and grab the chips. And so it opens up the drawer, grabs the chips. Open up the drawer, grab the chips, put them in the coffee cup. Turn the coffee cup upside down and then put the chips on top. And it just like does all this stuff. Push all of the red blocks to the left-hand corner and then put the coffee cup on top.
I
It
need
just
a
does it.
link to that because that just sounds cool.
Yeah. 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 It's the new Palm. It came out like a week ago.
Okay.
And it's just a giant learning model attached to if you do like a search on Google News for Palm
See,
B,
I
PALM. Let me see. Yeah, Palm E, PALM dash E.
okay.
Yeah, Palm E. Just do like Palm, Google
Got
PALM
it.
dash E, and then do a certain new search, and then you can see what it does. It's got a little
Cool.
drawer. It's got a little robot arm, and it's pulling stuff out of the drawer and organizing them in the ways that you're suggesting. And like it's not like it's been sat. It's been trained on potato chips, or has not been trained on coffee cups.
So my Google News search got me someplace I did not want to be. So let's try adding in the word robotic.
You tried Google. You're in Google. You went Google Palm.
Oh, I didn't put the word Google in.
Yeah,
I
PAL
Googled the
Google.
word.
Yeah,
Okay,
Google and then
got it now.
PALM. Yep. Yeah. So Google Palm E embeds
Okay.
vision with ChatGPT style AI model. That's 4
So
days ago.
if you leave the word Google off, you end up in a search result you do not wish for.
Right. Bring me the rice chips from the drawer.
Dang.
And so it goes over to the kitchen, opens up the drawer, grabs the rice chips, brings them back to you. And like anyone who's worked in computers knows, like, that's bonkers.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, you could make a 3-year-old could go to the drawer and bring you the rice chips, but a computer cannot. Right?
Well, now they can.
Now it can. Yesterday it couldn't, today it can. So
this, I have to say, this gives me hope for old age with decreasing population, because we are going to need robots to get us things.
yeah. There was a really interesting analogy that I heard someone describing what it's like to interact with a artificial intelligence that's very high capability. And he was saying, like, it taught my daughter how to play chess when she was 5. And I just smashed her, right? It was super easy. I could, and so I had to play down to her. I had to, but over time I could see her getting better and better and better.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time she was 12, I stopped having to pull my punches.
Mm-hmm.
We could just play a game of chess, and it was challenging. Sometimes I'd win, sometimes she'd win. And she kept learning. And then after a while, she was winning. And I understood the moves, and I could see how she would move the pieces around, but I kept falling into traps, or I couldn't understand how I was losing, but I was
Mm-hmm.
losing every time. And that is the feeling that we're going to have interacting with artificial general intelligence as we go.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to be like, this, like, I understand this is just working with atoms and data and all that kind of stuff, and yet it's making moves and doing things that I wouldn't have thought of, that are beyond my capability, and it's really unnerving. So anyway,
Yeah.
here we are. But I am both excited and horrified.
Yes.
Speaking of things that make us excited and horrified,
All right. Should I press
it's time to do today's episode.
All right.
Yeah.
I am pressing one record button. I am pressing the other record button, and I do have the Patreon names up.
Okay, great. All right. Astronomy Cast, episode 673, How to See Satellites or Avoid Them. Welcome to Astronomy Cast, our weekly facts-based journey through the cosmos, where we help you understand not only what we know, but how we know what we know. I'm Fraser Cain, the publisher of Universe Today. With me is Dr. Pamela Gay, a senior scientist for the Planetary Science Institute and the director of CosmoQuest. Hey, Pamela, how you doing?
I am doing well. I appear to be spending my day amused at the antics of artificial intelligence, and I feel like I need to do a PSA that if you have that new Samsung phone with the 100X and you take an image of the moon, it's not actually the moon that you photographed. Well, you did photograph the moon, and now it's giving you somebody else's picture of the moon, because that's how Samsung's AI is rocking.
Now, is that true?
Yeah, it's been
Because
confirmed.
I've heard that confirmation is also suspect. So, like press photos sharing to show what the moon looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the impression I get is that it's doing AI upscaling on your pictures. So it might not necessarily be somebody else's picture, but it is attempting to upscale the picture that you've taken.
So the test that was done was someone downloaded a picture of the moon, degraded it, blurred it out, and displayed it on a monitor, and then took a picture of what they displayed on the monitor. And the phone came back with something that was containing information that was not in the original picture.
Yeah, that sounds like AI upscaling to me. And they do that. I mean, they smooth out your image. They smooth out your picture.
But then it added resolution.
Yeah, that's what the upscaling is, right? It's Photoshop. So that's my, like, people want better pictures, and I mean, like, my Google phone totally messes with the shadows and the light areas to try and balance the picture. It'll remove wrinkles on your face. So we're deeply into this world where the pictures that you take are the pictures that you want, not the pictures that you took. I think is where we're getting to with all of this kind of stuff.
I don't like this. This is not the future I requested.
Would you just use a DSLR then?
I do.
Perfect. Well, then don't worry about it.
Okay.
And then everyone can use their bold glamour filter on TikTok and their teenage version of themselves. All right. So if you're in dark skies and you look up, you're certain to see a satellite. Lots of them. But how can you know which one you're seeing, and how can you improve your chances of a sighting? Today, we're going to talk about how to see satellites or avoid seeing them. And we'll talk about it in a second, but it's time for a break. And we're back. I am ambivalent today because
That's
I have
so unlike much. You.
I know. I have so much joy, so much happiness seeing satellites as a child, and through even now. I go outside, I look up, I see a satellite, I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
Space.
Yeah.
Right? That could be the Enterprise passing over. But then on the other hand, we know there's more and more and more of them, and they are going to be making our access to space harder. But
When was the last time you went out and just like spent a night in either a hammock or a lawn chair, or God forbid, actually lying on the ground where there are spiders and just
right,
looking at the sky the entire night?
a couple of years to do like the whole night. Like I'll definitely now I'll go outside just and if it's clear skies because they're so rare here
Yeah.
on the west coast of Canada this time of year, I go outside and I'm like, oh, it's clear, and then we'll go outside and we'll bundle up and we'll just watch the sky for as long as we can handle it. But yeah, in a couple of years for just going outside, laying down under the stars, and I usually pass out in a couple of hours though, so I'm not built for this.
Yeah, I last went out about a year and a half ago. Um, and so the constellations of satellites were in full swing. We had Starlink was starting to function, and going outside and looking up, trying to see a meteor shower in Illinois was a matter of look, oh shoot, because it was either a satellite or a lightning bug most of the time. And
That we don't have.
and
That would be awesome.
the lightning bugs were truly awesome, but the satellites initially had the exact same feeling as you. And like one of my most powerful memories of dark skies was sitting out on a big old rock at the base of a glacier when I was a high schooler and got to go glacier climbing and just watching satellites. I had never seen them before. And so this was like what it meant to be someplace truly dark, as you could see satellites. And now it's like, no, they're just there. They're just a lot of them there.
Right. So like describe the experience. If you're outside, it's a warm summer night, you're lying in the hammock, you're looking up, the sky is clear, the mosquitoes are strangely absent, and you are
That's
just
never going to
enjoying.
happen.
I know, and you're just enjoying the night sky. What and you notice the satellites. What will you see in the sky?
In general, most satellites that you're able to see are like some of the fainter stars, and it looks like a tiny star is moving across the sky. And one of the fascinating things is close to twilight, they'll make it horizon to horizon. But as it gets later and later, you can start to tell when they're entering the shadow of the Earth because they'll be going along, no more. And so there's that. First of all, you have to ask yourself, is it a plane? And the speeds and the solidness of the color, or the fact that it's blinking from white to not to white to not.
Yeah, you see the blinking green light,
If it's
and
an
that tells you
airplane.
if it's an airplane.
Yeah.
Any kind of blinking light that tells you this is an airplane.
And with the satellites, it's going to be sunlight getting reflected back to you. So occasionally there'll be a tumbling satellite, and those you will see variations in brightness, but it's still the color of the sunlight getting reflected back to you the entire time. Now, that going across the sky and turning off, one of the fascinating things is if you're out there and you're just taking in the entire sky, you can actually tell that different satellites are at different orbits, because the ones that are in lower orbits will start hitting the shadow earlier than the ones that are in higher orbits. And if something's in a large enough orbit, it's not going to actually land itself into the shadow of the Earth, and so you can continue watching it throughout the
Well,
night.
that sort of led into what was my next question, which is like, if you are seeing satellites go overhead, what can you learn just by observing?
So a whole lot. The first thing is we make a certain amount of assumption of how big the satellite is based on how much light it's reflecting back. And this isn't perfect. Some satellites are much shinier than others. Something that is covered in solar cells. So solar cells are designed to absorb sunlight, not reflect it. But to a certain degree, based on how bright it is, you can get an estimate of how large it is. Based on how fast it's moving across the sky, you can start to make assumptions about what orbit it's in. That can get confirmed again by when it does or doesn't hit the shadow of the Earth. And you can tell if it's rotating or not, assuming it isn't symmetric and symmetrically covered in things, based on how it varies in brightness as it goes.
Right. I was gonna. Okay. All right. So, like that varying of brightness. I mean, there are ones that you really need dark skies, but if you're in light polluted territory, like many of the people who are listening to this, what can you see?
The International Space Station is only about 400 kilometers up, and it is pretty darn big. It's something that you can actually resolve into a space station with a middling-sized telescope.
Even binoculars, with a good pair of binoculars, you can see the little TIE fighter shape to the space station.
So the space station, it's big, it's low down, it's reflecting a ton of light. That is something you can see fairly easily. The Hubble Space Telescope is actually not that hard to see. It's a little bit higher up and a whole lot tinier, but there are really good predictions for it, and it's shiny. It's reflective, basically.
One of the most exciting things that you can do with this is if you know the launch of Soyuz or Crew Dragon or one of these Cygnus capsule, you can go out when if you're lucky and you're going to get the flyover on your territory, then you can look out with the binoculars and watch as it flies overhead, and you can see the little dot chasing the big bright dot. You can actually see that the spacecraft is docking in space above your head.
And if you are in just the right place, you can get multiple passes in one night, and that allows you to see the dots getting closer and closer, orbit after orbit.
And that's me. So where I live in Canada, during the summer, the sunlight does sort of illuminate the low Earth orbit for the longer time.
Yeah.
And so I can get 3 passes of the International Space Station in over the course of an hour and a half. No, 3 hours. So you get one, and then 90 minutes later you get another one. Is it 90 minutes? 45 minutes?
90-ish.
Yeah, and then you get another one. So you get these 3 passes, and I've never done that. I've never seen it while there's a spacecraft catching it, but it's quite amazing to be able to go outside and see. So then let's talk about, like, this is all random happenstance.
Yeah.
So how do we improve our chances of spotting a satellite, or even starting to find spotting a satellite, or finding a specific satellite that we want to see?
So the most straightforward thing to do, and it is designed for absolutely anyone to be able to use it, is to go to the Heavens Above website, and they list prominent, well-known satellites. You tell it where you are. It can tell you when you'll be able to see what passes. And it's really kind of a gateway drug to being a satellite spotter. And it really doesn't get more simple than what Heavens Above allows you to do. Now, you can get as trickstery as you want, however, and there is satellite parsing software in a lot of planetarium software now that allows you to go out and you can see what tracks are going ahead as you're looking at your planetarium software. And if you have the right kind of telescope mount, you can chase those suckers down.
Right. Yeah. One of my favorite things to do, and I say that, but I've only done this once successfully, is you can go to websites that will let you predict the location of the International Space Station for when it's going to pass in front of the sun or the moon.
Yes.
And so you go out to the place, and it'll tell you where you have to be. So it's a very small area nearby you And so often it'll recommend some locations you can go within, say, 100 kilometers, and then you go to this exact location at this exact time, and then you record a video of the moon. And then you have, because the station can be in shadow and invisible. So you won't see the space station fly overhead. You just record your image of the moon, and then you go back and you look at the videos that you made, and you blow them up, and boom, there goes the space station passing in front of the moon at the exact appointed time, which is just incredible.
And there's some folks out there, Andrew McCarthy comes to mind, who are doing amazing work getting themselves to the right place and using high-end equipment to capture these alignments. And poor Andrew is so good at it that he occasionally gets trolls coming after him saying that it can't be real and the rate at which things are moving across the moon doesn't make sense. And no, it's just that good.
Yeah. My favorite is a guy named Thierry Legault. He's in France.
Yeah.
And he's taking pictures that are so good. You can see the astronauts doing a spacewalk on the outside of the International Space Station.
Wow.
It's crazy. All right, we're going to talk about this more, but it's time for a break. And we're back. So what about Starlinks? Let's say, you've heard that the Starlinks make a trail. How do you see those?
So it depends on how recently they've launched. This is going to sound more complicated, but it always works. So there are certain websites that you can go to, and they have catalogs of all the satellites that are out there. Celestrak is one of the ones that is particularly savvy about having absolutely everything. And NASA provides all the calculators you need to get the observational ephemeris. So you go to Celestrak, you get what's called a 2-line element, which is just the way people share satellite information back and forth. It's super compact, not meant for human brains.
Right.
But then JPL has software that will take in these 2-line elements, turn them into ephemeris, and tell you exactly where in the sky at what time you can find these different objects. A lot of times, amateur astronomers will be out there being like, okay, folks, let's go see this. But that I have found, there isn't any one place that's like, okay, type in your location and we will tell you exactly when to see every different Starlink trail. But Celestrak is a good base.
Yeah. Celestrak is terrific. I highly recommend it as well. That and Heavens Above.
Yeah.
You need, you can only see the Starlinks for a few days after they launch with your eyes. So they start out with the launch and they start at fairly low altitude, and then they are slowly raising their altitude, and they're in this train, and you'll have 60 little dots in this line, and over time they're getting farther and farther apart from each other, and then eventually they all dim as they get higher and they get into their final operational altitude, but also their final orientation. So when they're still raising their altitude, they're quite bright, and then they fade away. So people are all worried about whether or not Starlinks are just going to turn the sky into this grid of little dots, and that is
depends
not
on if you're using a telescope or not.
Yes. Yeah, no, but just like with your eyes, you walk outside, you look up, you won't see any Starlinks.
Yeah, so go to Celestrak, type in the satellite that you're interested in, go to JPL Horizons, get the ephemeris.
Yep.
And just go chase.
Yeah. And it is a lot of fun. And this is why I feel this ambivalence, because yes, these are human created light pollution that is going across the sky, but it is really cool to see things that human beings have created and to see them in space and to feel this connection that all the way back to Yuri Gagarin and Sputnik and the Apollo missions and all this kind of stuff. You're seeing humanity's becoming a spacefaring civilization, just like that.
The Starlinks have an entire story in them. because when those trains get launched, they're as you pointed out, they're launched in a lower orbit. This way, if any of them are dead, they just fall back to Earth. No space junk. That is amazing. They then have these ion engines that move so very slowly. TIE fighters had it wrong. And
Yeah.
so they're slowly using particles to boost their orbit, which is an entire other story. And so we're seeing things get launched into a safe orbit and then getting moved into a functional orbit where hopefully the atmosphere won't destroy them too often. And that's something neat to get to share with other humans.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fun thing to kind of organize, like both the space station or the Starlink trails. I mean, I wish there were better tools out there to notify you. There are some for sure.
Yeah.
Like you can get a notification when the space station is going to make a flight overhead.
Yeah. Spot the
Um,
Station from NASA is one that helps with that.
yeah, and they'll send you like a text message,
Yeah.
and you've got like the station's going to make a fly over your area in 10 minutes. Go outside, and you're like, okay, and then there it is. It's a great party trick. There was an even better party trick, which was the Iridium satellites. Did you ever
Yes.
chase Iridium flares?
Yes, those were fabulous, especially it's you could see them dawn and dusk occasionally, and there would be this flash brighter than Venus has ever been. If Venus got that bright, we'd be in trouble. And it would flash and then fade as the angle that the sunlight was coming at you changed. The original Iridium satellites were problematic, is the word I'm
Yeah.
going to choose to use. And we're not going to go into their abuse of bandwidth, but they
look cool.
they had this amazingly reflective surface, and they'd flare up and fade away, and it wasn't that constant streak. It was this flare that was magnificent.
I would say, when that first generation Iridium satellites were operating, I would say half of the "what did I see in the sky" emails that I would get
Yes.
were explained by Iridium satellites. And the thing that's incredible about them is that you could predict when they were going to flare. And so you could say, okay, look over there, get ready.
It was a party
Boom.
trick.
Yeah, there's the flare. And
Yeah.
people are like, whoa.
Yeah.
So, but the first generation network is long gone now.
Yeah.
Satellites are gone. So that party trick is over. Now you've only got the Starlink trails and the International Space Station. All right. We're going to have another break. And when we get back, we're going to talk about how to avoid satellites. And we're back. All right. So the title of this episode is how to see satellites, but also how to avoid them. How do we avoid seeing satellites?
It's getting harder and harder, and I regret to say that it's starting to become a software problem.
Right.
Yeah, so there are currently satellites crossing the sky in almost every direction. Not literally every direction, because going against the rotation of the planet kind of is hard to get into, even if you were space debris. But we have polar orbits, we have all manner of inclination between 0 and 90. So you have things going around the equator and around the poles and everywhere in between. Now, luckily, once you start looking away from the equator late at night, the probability you're going to have things, especially in the winter, goes down, 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 because things aren't going to be as much in the sunlight. They're going to be in the shadow of the Earth. And we luckily don't put things in really large, highly inclined orbits. So since they're closer to the planet generally, not always, there's Russian communication satellites and things like that. The Milyanka orbits will screw you up. But other than that.
So the thing that we mentioned as the way to see satellites, go during the time when your nights are the shortest and your dawn and dusk are the longest to see satellites. So do the opposite. go out at the time when the night is the longest and the dawn and the dusk are the shortest, which for us in the northern hemisphere means wintertime. December 21st is going to be the shortest, the longest night, the shortest day,
Yeah.
and also the coldest. so it's sort of too bad, but I mean, no matter where you go.
And look away from the equator.
And look away from the equator. So to maximize your chance of not having any satellites in the sky is to see during the wintertime on the longest night you can. And then the time. So you most likely see the satellites at dawn and dusk.
Yes.
So avoid dawn and dusk. Go observe deep into astronomical night. So like, when would you start? Like, if you want to guarantee it's December 21st and you want to make sure that you don't see any satellite trails, when would you open up the light to your telescope?
Oh man, I would want to go as far north as I could while still having good weather in December, which is an interesting set of variables. And probably 3 hours after sunset. So well after astronomical twilight, just because that will get rid of all the lower orbits for the most part.
So if it gets dark for you at 6,
Yeah.
start observing at 9.
Yeah, and it's frustrating. And this is where I think that isn't always going to be practical. We can't throw away that much of the night if we're trying to do science. So what you end up doing is where you might have taken 10 images of a target in the past and stacked them together into your image. Now you're going to be taking 13 or 14 so that all those satellite streaks that are cutting through your image are something that you can get rid of. And one of the annoying things is, while all of this works for optical telescopes, infrared telescopes are going to be cursed, because infrared you can still see because the satellites are warm.
Right. They're warmed up by the sun, and so they pass through your field of view. And I mean, I think people who are listening to this are wondering, like, isn't there software that you can use? And the answer is absolutely. You can, as an amateur astrophotographer, the problem of removing artifacts from your pictures is as old as the hobby.
Yeah.
Removing airplane trails, removing satellite trails, you throw out the frame that has the picture in it.
You don't even throw out the whole frame. So
Yeah.
You throw out the pixels. What you do is called min-max rejection, or, I mean, that's just one of the equations. There's lots of different ways, but min-max is the easiest one to explain, and it's super effective for this. Basically, you say, okay, I took 15 images. I am going to get rid of the 5 brightest no matter what for a given pixel. So you do this on a pixel by pixel basis. I get rid of however many on the low end makes sense for your particular detector, and then I combine everything in the middle. And what this does is it gets rid of your cosmic rays, because they're going to vary from pixel to pixel each time.
Yes.
It gets rid of your
there are
satellites.
Cosmic rays going through your picture. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's so cool. But
and so you
but
just,
also they're annoying.
They're super annoying, especially the glancing blow ones, because they look more like lightning.
Yep.
So min-max rejection.
Right. So the point is, algorithmically, you can run your astrophotography through these algorithms. You can remove the star trails, the plane trails, if that's what you want, or make a fun picture that shows all of the trails all at the same time. To leave those in, and you can see just how much they're crossing your pictures. It is a minor annoyance, and it's getting a little bit worse, but it is not causing a lot of damage to the work of astrophotographers. But where the area is significant is in the work of professional astronomers. And that you have limited time on this really powerful telescope.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking a picture of this specific galaxy. You need a very long exposure image to get the spectroscopic data.
Yeah.
You were only able to take 10 images of the galaxy, and one of them has a giant satellite trail going right through it, and you have to throw it out. It's worthless. And
Yeah,
so now,
there are maths that are saying that it's going to increase the amount of observing time needed on a target from several percent to 10%-ish.
yeah, yeah,
And that's a lot. That means potentially several percent to 10% less science completed.
right. And the halfway solution is back to the thing that you mentioned earlier on, which is ephemeris. Like
Yes.
right now, there's no rules and regulations about launching the satellites as with respect to astronomers. There's no requirement for the satellite operators to tell astronomers where their satellites are so that they can organize their observations around it. There was a paper that I read where they said that you could remove almost in all of the effect of the satellites in astronomical images from a trailing standpoint, not the sky side. That's a whole other issue. By providing really accurate locations and orbits of the satellites. And so the astronomer knows, okay, don't take the picture for 1 second. Wait 1 second before taking the picture, and the satellite will have moved away from the object that I'm observing, and then take the picture. And
And
so,
it's gonna become a hot mess at some point where you have algorithms set up so I can do 90 seconds, pause, do 120 seconds, pause.
mhm,
And so you're trying to figure it out.
yeah, and that, like the satellite, and this is my people always have this what I think is a fairly emotional reaction to the existence of these satellites, and for me, like the thing that should have happened was the satellite operators and the astronomers got together and they came up with a set of rules for how to minimize the impact on science. And
Yeah.
that conversation was never had.
No.
And the astronomers could have had a voice and could have put in a bunch of recommendations that the government could have then made the satellite operators adhere to. And we would be in a place where we would still have almost the same amount of high speed communications around the earth, and the astronomers would be able to get almost the same amount of the science that they're doing today. And that never happened,
Yeah.
which makes me frustrated.
Yeah, we were both at the 2020 AAS meeting, which was right after Starlink had started putting up trains, and the outrage was palpable because
Yeah.
we just didn't see it coming. And
Yeah.
radio astronomy has worked hard to try and get service providers to shut off their broadcasts while over various radio astronomy sites. But with optical telescopes, we can't turn off the sun's reflection as readily.
Right.
So we're kind of stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Anyway, it's obviously it's an ongoing issue, and I'm sure we'll be reporting on it when we get to the final 30,000 satellites in various constellations and so on. Like it will be an unfolding issue, but there is no putting this horse back in the barn.
Genie back in the bottle.
Genie back in the bottle. We are proceeding into this new world with tens of thousands of low Earth orbit satellites at the same time trying to do science from the ground.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pamela.
And thank you, Fraser. And thank you so much to everyone out in our audience who supports us through Patreon. I wish we could thank all of you, but we can't. But this week, I'm going to thank at least some of you. So thank you to Scott Cohn, Kimberly Reich, Daniel Loosely, Marco Iarasi, Matthew Horstman, DFM, Jeff Wilson, Grigory Singleton, Philip Walker, Tim Garish, Matthias Hayden, Claudia Mastriani, Justin Proctor, Tim McMacken, Kensaya Pimflenko, Disastrina Cooper, Veronica Cure, Benjamin Mueller, Omar Del Riviera, J. Alex Alexanderson, Iran Zagrev, Kenneth Ryan, Don Mundus, Michelle Cullen, Dean McDaniel, Paul D. Disney, Scott Briggs, Ninja Nick, Shersum, Michael Regan, Peter, Matt Rucker, Jim McGeehan, Frodo Tenenbaum, Father Prax, Brent Krenop, Philip Grand, Antosaurus, Bruce Amazine, Mark Steven Rasnick, Abraham Cottrell, Dwight Ilk, and Smansky. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
See y'all. Bye-bye. And
And then
they
they
saved.
saved.
This is 373?
Correct.
Okay. Alara Sophia over on Twitch says that it was a really fascinating episode. Thank you, Alara.
Oh, good. We live to serve. This with your questions, or you will get a rant. Some I feel like people want my rants.
They're fun.
So we got a bunch of fruit trees. I planted 17 new fruit trees in my garden, but I had to do a very harsh cut on them because I don't want them to get very big. And so it's where you want the fruit tree to start branching. And so I want them at knee height. So I took a 6-foot tree, cut it to 1.5.
Oh,
and it's just this stump in the ground.
Oh, God.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying. But I am experts tell me this is the right move, that this is what gets me a fruit tree that will then gobble it up from that point. It'll set runners up on the various sides, and then I will be able to cut those, and then I'll be able to post, be able to cut them, and then I'll have like a fruit tree that's under control and not something that's 20 feet tall. But right now my orchard is 20
stumps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I know, like, I won't get any fruit from them this year. I probably won't even get any fruit for them next year.
Oh.
Yeah. It's kind of scary to go through this process, because I just it's antithetical to prune a tree like this.
Yeah. So. I need to get an arborist out, because a woodpecker has been far too happy in our apple tree, which means there are bugs in our apple tree.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like how big is your apple tree?
It's like 1.5 stories tall.
Right.
It's also like over 100 years old. So.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the old style Granny Smith baking apples.
Right. But like, you don't get a fraction of you don't need a fraction of the apples that it generates. They all fall on the ground around your
groundhogs,
tree.
Deer, possums,
deer get them.
skunks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like that's what you get if you let a tree get big. So, yeah. Kim Barron saying, for me, short trees get munched by rabbits, especially depending on the depth. I need them at least 3 feet tall. Like, the trees will be 7 feet tall when I'm done with them. 6-7 feet tall. But I have to train them. Yeah, I have to train them now to take the shape that I need. That if they get if they go all the way up centrally, then they'll just get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But it's interesting. It's fun. In fact, like, I don't know about you, but it finally feels like the weather has turned around for us.
So, like, my daffodils started blooming, and then we got a hard freeze again, and we're supposed to have several more freezes this week, and I now have the saddest looking daffodils.
I do too. Yeah. My daffodils came up, and then they were like, "Wait, what? This is a trap.
Yeah, this is not what we ordered."
Yeah. Arjun is asking, what is the fruit? I've got 5 apple trees, 2 plum trees, Italian plum trees, 1 Asian plum tree, although I might need to get another one. Apparently they need to pollinate with each other. 4 cherry trees, 2 peach trees, a nectarine, 2 pears, European pears, 2 Asian pears, and a fig tree.
I didn't know that figs and nectarines grew that far north.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, figs for sure.
Okay.
There are figs that are adapted to our climate and colder.
And you have the wasps that pollinate them?
In theory, I mean, I've heard that you don't always get a wasp in every fig. Right? So.
And if you don't know about that and you're bug adverse and like figs, do not Google it, folks.
Cameron's asking what my zone is. I'm like 7B, 8A. I'm like right on the cusp between 7B and 8A. I don't know what you are.
I'm 6.
See, and there you go. People
Yeah.
wouldn't realize this, right? I have the milder climate over you. In both directions. You have a colder winter than me and a hotter summer than me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm at the point of I need to order dirt and stuff like that and continue. Whoa, that was not what I intended to do. And continue my battle against the blackberry bushes.
So, when it comes to ordering dirt, you have dirt that you need to put in various places.
So I'm working on building a set of raised beds, terraced beds for strawberries. And last year, I think was last year or the year before was the first year I had them in, and I put in a whole bunch of leaves and then put dirt on top of the leaves, and it was beautifully stacked. And the leaves deteriorated, and so now I have nesting instead of terraced raised beds.
Don't put dirt on top of leaves, because
This is what
as
I
soon
learned.
as soon as you bury leaves, wood chips, anything, then it steals the nitrogen. So you can put them on the top, but don't put them under the dirt. But like, how much dirt do you need? Like, do you need a dump truck's worth of dirt?
No. I need like 4 bags.
Yeah. The greatest, man. So here's the hack. If you ever need to bring in gravel, dirt, compost in fairly large amounts, you get a soil slinger, and it's a dump truck with a belt, with a like a assembly line belt on the back of it. And it throws the material in this stream to the exact location that you want it. And so, a lot of people will go and they'll get like they'll get a delivery of gravel, and the truck will come up and they'll dump the gravel, and they've got to go and they shovel it into their wheelbarrow, and they take it out and they dump it, etc. No, soil slinger. It just pours it like this stream exactly where you need it. And the guy comes out, the operator comes out with a little remote control, and then you're like, okay, now here. And then now it's the pouring gravel in that exact location, or soil or compost or whatever it is that you've purchased.
I am sad to say I highly doubt the truck would fit between the house, the garage, and the trees.
They can throw it about 100 feet.
But would they throw it over the garage? I'm not sure any of us would. They would.
Yes, they can throw it over
terrifying.
A building. Yeah,
okay.
I know. Yeah, conveyor belt. So yeah. So so they can throw. It's a conveyor. The conveyor belt itself is about, say, 20 feet long, and then whatever angle, and then the stuff's coming out at high velocity.
Yeah,
and will then follow this arc. And they can, and they, like, I'm thinking about your place. Yeah, they could back up on your driveway, and then
fling it over the garage,
and then fling it over the garage. Depending on what exactly what it is, but they can definitely get it over fences, things like that. Yeah. Anyway, it's just like I feel like this is the hack that I have to tell everybody, because
so
anybody who has ever had to
move
shovel
dirt,
load after load after
bark
load of
mulch.
dirt. Yeah. And yet they bring in these soil slingers, and an hour later your work is done, right? It's all just happened. Like, it was delivered and it was put exactly where you needed it in exactly the right quantities. Yeah. So we have sort of like this, like, a lot of landscaping had been done, and sort of all the dirt was scraped off of the hills and stuff. And so we need to put a layer of topsoil down. So I ordered a load of topsoil, and the guy came in with the soil slinger, and then it's just, painting topsoil across everything. And then we seeded it. Yeah. Yeah. Amazing.
The Twitch chat right now is delightful. We have Null Denominator saying, "Pardon me while I spend the next 2 hours looking up soil slingers on YouTube," and Keeper of Maps with, "Science is scary sometimes, CosmoQuest, but it'll make dirt fly over your garage predictably."
Yeah. Yeah. So like with the soil slinger, if you do need one, you can go to YouTube, watch some YouTube videos of soil slingers or drain rock they're slinging drain rock or
Yeah,
or
yeah.
soil or compost or whatever.
Flying
And so
compost. That
yeah,
that is interesting
yeah,
connotations.
it is a stream, a fire hose stream of compost landing precisely where you need it. It's amazing.
All
And
right.
it's just like, talk about saving time. Like, oh, what kind of maniac spends their day shoveling? And so the trick is always like, you like if you order a load of soil or gravel or whatever from a company, they won't necessarily have the slinger. They'll deliver
Yeah.
it to you with a dump truck. So you hire the slinger company, and then they go and do the pickup from the supply. So the people with the slingers, they all they do is just provide the slinging truck. And then you
Dang.
say, I've ordered a load of drain rock from this place, go pick it up. And then they go and they pick it up, and then they sling it, and then they leave. So yeah, that's how it works. Yeah, I think that is my gift. That is my gift to everybody, is save your back.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've reached the end of our show. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us today on this very botanical episode of Astronomy Cast. For AI and gardens
Yes.
on Astronomy Cast. Thank you to everyone watching us on YouTube and on Twitch. Thanks to all of the moderators. Thank you to our production staff that makes the show sound awesome. Thank you, Pamela, for bringing in every week. And we will see all of you next week. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.